service for others, and he lived for that.
The name of Nathan Desjardins is added to Maine's Law Enforcement Memorial, perhaps the youngest officer on that monument.
From Cumberland, Maine, 17-year-old Krista Wakefield.
A former Miss Maine Teen USA is making national headlines for her arrest on a domestic violence charge. Also ahead.
I'm not the armed guard sitting at the door just grimacing at everybody. That would get boring in a hurry, wouldn't like that, and nobody probably want to talk to me.
It takes a particular kind of person to be a school resource officer. We'll see how they handle an increasingly important job. An annual ceremony honoring officers killed in the line of duty stirs unusually powerful emotions this year. Good evening, I'm Pat Callahan.
And I'm Cindy Williams. A service at the Fallen Police Memorial comes just 3 weeks after the murder of Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Eugene Cole.
And for the first time, we're hearing from family members of a young Freiburg police officer killed in the line of duty last year. NECN's Danielle Waugh reports.
Parading through the state capitol, reading
Charles E. McIntosh,
the names of Maine officers killed in the line of duty.
Francis A. Murray.
A public ceremony with private and powerful moments.
I'm very honored to be here. It's very emotional.
It's bittersweet for Nicole Desjardins to see her son Nathan's name engraved. He was just 20 years old on one of his first shifts for the Freiburg Police Department when he died performing a water rescue.
I think Nathan, in his short life, did a lot of service for others, and he lived for that.
He's the latest and possibly youngest person to have a permanent place on this memorial.
He would have been graduating this year, so yeah.
He would have been a nurse practitioner. He would be graduating this Saturday, and that was another dream of his.
Next year, there will be one more name to add to this wall, Somerset County Corporal Eugene Cole. With Cole's son and widow in the audience, emotions are still raw from that murder and manhunt in Norridgewock, Maine 3 weeks ago.
The manhunt that followed and the funeral that we just attended engraves on our hearts how important it is to honor all of you.
These officers put on the badge every day and attend this ceremony every year. But a new name and a recent trauma makes the meaning of this granite wall feel especially heavy. In Augusta, Danielle Waugh, News Center, Maine.
In order to qualify for the memorial, a Maine police officer must be killed in some violent action in the line of duty. That's according to the board that selects the names placed on the wall.
That standard isn't sitting well with multiple families of fallen officers who do not qualify. Last night, News Center's Christina Rex told us about Chris Gardner, who died after a training injury and didn't qualify for the memorial.
And Christina, today you spoke with another family who had a similar experience.
Yeah, I did, Pat and Cindy. Pearlie Kenny, he actually died in 1966. He was on the job for Westbrook Police at the time. His family was told his death wasn't violent enough to qualify for Maine's memorial. Officer Kenny carried a pregnant woman down multiple flights of stairs on the job, and moments later he died of a massive heart attack. His nephew Tim Libby is a retired Falmouth officer and tried to get his uncle's name on the Augusta wall with no success. Right now, there are 85 officers listed on that memorial. Tim Libby says he doesn't want to distract from their sacrifice, but he does want to see the guidelines changed to include all officers killed on duty. Libby went to Washington, D.C. back in 2006 and took an etching of his uncle's name on the National Wall.
And I brought it home, and I was very, very proud to have that with me. But I've always been very sad that he and his sacrifices never showed up here in Maine.
And there are a number of officers whose names do appear on the National Memorial, and deservedly so, that do not fit the criteria for those here in Maine.
So that committee member who you just heard from says that he's been on the committee for all 27 years it's been in existence, and the criteria have never changed, but the committee is open for discussion.
All right, thanks, Christina.
Interesting.
Some medical marijuana businesses are calling on Congress to allow banks to serve licensed pot businesses without the threat of federal penalties.
Caregivers say having to deal in cash puts their businesses at risk for crime, and they say that's what happened to a medical caregiver in Millinocket, shot and killed during a home invasion last December.
News Center's Vivian Lee spoke with people at several medical marijuana businesses about that today. Vivian?
Well, Pat and Cindy, 59-year-old Wayne LaPierre was shot and killed during a robbery at his home. 2 men and a woman are accused in the crime, and they're accused of stealing hundreds of dollars in cash, proceeds from his business he stashed in a safe inside his home. Now, caregivers we talked to say LaPierre was an easy target because it's known pretty much to everybody that most banks won't serve businesses that make a profit from medical marijuana, which is considered illegal under federal law. Now, Mainers spent more than $60 million at medical marijuana dispensaries and with caregivers in 2016, a booming industry that could explode when recreational pot businesses open sometime next year. Caregivers say such a void of banks to deposit their money will make their businesses more of a target for violent crime.
We're getting robbed. We now have people that are getting murdered. We're running around with cash everywhere, which is exactly what our government doesn't want.
Now, Julia Dawson's bank account was closed 2 years ago. He now banks with a credit union, one of only 2 we understand in the state that is willing to work with licensed marijuana businesses. Now, a bill that would create a safe harbor for banks to work with medical and recreational businesses who are licensed is pending in Congress, but it's not known when that will be up for a vote. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Vivian. A former Miss Maine Teen USA and standout athlete from Cumberland is making national headlines after being charged with domestic assault in Florida.
Krista Glover, who is married to 3-time PGA Tour winner Lucas Glover, is accused of striking her husband and mother-in-law.
News Center Maine's Shannon Moss spoke with Krista Glover's high school basketball coach about the young woman and player he coached for years.
This morning I said, oh my goodness, that's Krista.
Longtime Greeley High School basketball coach George Conan was shocked when he saw Krista Glover's mugshot. Krista played basketball for Conan for 3 years in the mid to late 90s.
As a player, awesome. I mean, we went to 2 state championship games.
He remembers Krista fondly, not only as an excellent athlete, but a popular student who had a great attitude and a bright future.
Always had a presence about her. She always wanted to do well. She just was someone who wanted to succeed.
And she did. News Center Maine featured Krista in a story back in 1998, a standout basketball and soccer player who also competed and won the Miss Maine Teen USA title.
17-year-old Krista Wakefield.
911, what is your emergency? I've been attacked by my mother-in-law.
Krista Glover, now married to 3-time PGA Tour winner Lucas Glover, was arrested Saturday night in Florida. According to the police report, Krista was arguing with her husband when the fight got physical. Police say when Glover's mother tried to intervene, Krista attacked her. Both Glover and his mother had cuts on their arms. The report also says Krista resisted arrest and forcibly kicked a cruiser door.
I couldn't dream of a scenario where I could wake up and read that and have that really be Krista.
Conan believes this is Krista's cry for help.
Something's missing. There has to be some rationale. And I believe that because I know Krista, but I believe that because I know people.
Conan cautions people who hear the news and are quick to judge.
So many times we want to jump and place blame, and I think that's the worst thing we can do. I'm hoping she can look at the harm that happened here and find a way to make it right. And to make it right for her. I mean, she has a son and a daughter.
Conan says if anyone can make amends and find a way to heal, it's Krista. Shannon Moss, News Center, Maine.
Still to come on News Center at 6, businesses that attract tourists are worried about staffing, claiming that the government won't allow enough foreign workers to fill the need.
And a reward is offered to help find the vandals who damaged almost 24 school buses. A couple who live in the RSU 16 district are offering a $1,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest of whoever is responsible for vandalizing the district's bus fleet. 22 school buses were vandalized early yesterday morning in Poland. Schools in Poland, Mechanic Falls, and Minot had to close for the day. Mechanics estimate the vandals caused about $12,000 in damages. A surveillance camera caught 2 suspects on video, Anyone with information is asked to contact the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Department.
Summer tourist businesses are up and running, but once again, many are worried about not having enough workers. And business owners say the federal government is part of the problem. The resort towns like Ogunquit, there many hotels and restaurants have been filling the gaps with foreign workers on visas for years. Those visas are controlled by the federal government, which only now allows 33,000 for the whole country for summer tourist season. Many tourist businesses did not get the number of people they need. The family that owns the Meadowmere Resort says their request for a dozen housekeepers was denied. They are now scrambling to find others to fill the gap, but they say the shortage of H-2B visas is going to make it harder to keep things running for the season.
We've had a lot of success here. It's been a great business, and I hate to see it messed up by not being able to have the labor to run it.
We've been trying to figure out contingency plans. It's in flux, but it's hard. The phones are ringing now. We're making reservations now. We can't deny people their annual vacation to be with us because we're not sure what's going to happen.
The Maine Innkeepers Association says many businesses are in the same situation. They say overall Maine was granted about half of the number of visas that businesses had asked for. Business owners say they and their staffs will have to work more hours and figure out other ways to make up for the shortage of people.
There are 3 Democrats campaigning for the chance to challenge Republican Congressman Bruce Poliquin this fall. Tonight at 7, News Center presents a Voice of the Voter candidate forum. We'll be talking with Jared Golden, Craig Olson, and Lucas St. Clair. If you have questions for the candidates, you can join us on Facebook Live and post them during the forum. That's the 2nd District Voice of the Voter Candidate Forum tonight at 7 o'clock. Still to come on News Center at 6, Keith Carson with a look at how your weekend weather is shaping up. But first, a school resource officer is there to keep students safe, but he has to earn their trust too. A school shooting in Illinois yesterday ended quickly thanks to the rapid response of an armed school resource officer.
He's being credited with taking down the gunman and preventing further tragedy. This all took place inside the school near the gym where graduating seniors were gathered to practice for this weekend's commencement.
And as News Center's Clay Gordon learned, school safety is just a part of a school resource officer's role. He joins us now to tell us more. Clay.
Pat and Cindy, right now there are about 77 school resource officers in Maine, all tasked with keeping our children safe and being there to stop a potential threat. A common misconception, though, is that they are only in schools for security.
Rattling doors and checking empty classrooms. Only part of the equation for RSU 22 School Resource Officer Sergeant Dan Stewart.
A lot of people think an SRO is just an armed cop sitting at the door waiting for the next big bad thing to happen. And it's so much more than that.
You too.
All right, see ya. To build that rapport, so if somebody hears somebody say something, then they'll come and tell us. And we got to get past the tattletale stuff and get to, this is life and death stuff.
Spending 33 years in Maine law enforcement, the last 8 years based in the school, Stewie, as some of the students call him, is not here to take a break.
After a long time on the streets, policing neighborhoods, you're coming here to retire. That's not the case.
No, I can find myself very busy in here, believe me.
Busy building relationships, better known as community policing.
You guys have a good weekend, all right? They'll text me once they're graduated. They can be Facebook friends.
Working off the clock into the evening hours to show students he is there for them anytime.
Basketball games, a lot of times, I come in, I cook the hot dogs, make the popcorn, get everything ready. The volunteers come in to sell the food. It's that whole community feeling. I think the kids will relate to me better if I'm somebody that's, supporting them rather than somebody, punches a clock and goes home.
A rare role for a police officer, but not when law enforcement is a fraction of his assignment.
More of my time is spent in the counseling and educating part than it is in the law enforcement part, which is a good thing.
Adapting to trends and technology to remain approachable so as students know the door is always open.
Now, Sergeant Stewart also gave his opinion on arming teachers here in Maine and some of the lessons learned from the deadly high school shooting in Parkland, Florida. You can find the extra clips right now on our website, newscentermaine.com. Pat and City.
Thanks, Clay.
Thanks, Clay.
Thank you.
All right, we got that 8 o'clock sunset and the temperatures finally to match it. It had been a struggle along the coastline to get over 70. We had that one warm day a couple of weeks ago, but 71 officially in Portland today, 75 in Sanford, 78 in Freiburg, and finally the county coming back to reality. Temperatures in the 50s there, while most of us were in the 70s. High thin clouds moving very quickly over southern coastal Maine. Notice the speed of these clouds is different than the ones closer to the surface. This is the upper atmosphere that is moving very quickly off to the south and east as part of a much larger storm system that I'll show you in a second. But you can see those two layers of clouds here in Dan Moscato's web camera, where you've got some high thin clouds here and then the lower ones that are moving more slowly off there on the other side of your screen. So that's kind of what's going on in the atmosphere. If you look up there, you'll see the levels of different clouds. It is a big area of rain off to the south and southwest. I mentioned 2 days ago that it looked like it was going to rain in the next 24 hours if you didn't have computer models and atmospheric soundings to help you. Luckily we do, so we knew it would be dry today. It'll be dry again tomorrow, as most of this is kind of shunted off to the south and east by a ridge of high pressure. Eventually that ridge does bend, and that's on Saturday afternoon when the rain starts to move in. Hour by hour forecast tonight, most of us are clear. Relatively mild through the first half of the evening, but then cool as we head into tomorrow morning. Temperatures in the 30s and 40s along the coastline. Tomorrow is a bright day, but even with the sun angle as strong as it is this time of the year, the air mass is cool, so highs only in the upper 50s to around 60 degrees. Friday night is quiet, and then Saturday the timing is such that in the morning we're in good shape pretty much statewide. So let's take you to Saturday morning. You can see the clear skies across much of the state, but quickly from southwest to northeast by 2 o'clock most of the state is cloudy. Showers start moving into York County, eventually Cumberland County, into the mid-coast here around 4 or 5 o'clock. But you'll notice over the northern half of the state, the rain is almost starting around sunset. It rains heavily at times overnight Saturday, and then a couple of showers and thunderstorms left over on Sunday. But I think Sunday is not a bad day. It's mild, a little humid, and that chance of a thunderstorm. Forecast for rain is relatively high, over an inch in spots. So that's something that is good, actually, because we're not in a drought. We're also not overly saturated in the soil. So it's rare that we do these things in little increments, right, guys? I always say that usually you get into a drought, then you bust it with flooding. So it's nice to just stay in the middle every once in a while. And that's kind of where we'll be forecast-wise, too. You know, I was mentioning to Jess, this is a nice pattern for May. What it doesn't have is any heat. This time last year was 91.
Was it really?
I know, we didn't remember it either, but apparently that's what the record said. We don't have any big heat in the forecast, but we're staying nice.
All right. So. That's all right.
That's okay.
Even keel like that. That's
you say Mainers don't like heat? Is that would be a fair statement? Yeah.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith. Sports is next on News Center.
Bates College is rowing its way to history. Jessica Gagne will give us a look at the hard work the athletes put in to set the gold standard.
It was a big weekend for Bates at the National Invitational Rowing Championships. The men's team made history and the women are champs again. But there's more glory up for grabs in the coming weeks, and both Bates teams are ready to venture into uncharted waters and leave their mark. Rain and fog cover the Androscoggin River. That's not keeping the Bates rowing teams off the water. They've got more milestones to hit. At last weekend's NIRC, the Bates men performed better than all the Bates teams that came before them. No male Bates rower had ever won gold there. This year, every Bates boat won a gold medal.
Second varsity 8 won gold, and that's when we thought, like, you know, this is our day. It's our day to make history.
The wins earned Bates its first ever trip to the IRA National Championship Regatta, the top-tier championship in men's collegiate rowing.
It's just a dream come true. Since this is our first time, we don't really know what to expect, and we're going there with kind of just relishing the moment and savoring it and seeing what we can do and trying to upset some teams.
For the Bates women, winning gold has become the standard. The Bobcats swept their NIRC competition for the second year in a row and have their sights set on another NCAA Division III championship title, their third one in 4 years.
We've had like a lot of wins and medals already, and that's exciting, but it's not really kind of like, if we'll be fast, Coach always says it's just how fast we'll be, and it's like really exciting just to think about that.
Pushing each other to the limits to improve times and keep the titles coming for years to come.
We have a huge senior class, and there's 21 of us between the men and the women, so there is a lot of leadership there.
It's been 4 years of endless miles on the water and lots of racing, and I'm just excited to finish strong and have the best possible race that we can have.
The women will compete for the NCAA title May 24th and 25th in Sarasota, Florida, and the men will compete in their first IRA National Championship in West Windsor, New Jersey, June 1st through the 3rd. Go Bobcats!
That is a big step up from no medals for the men to every boat getting a gold.
Hey, they're having a great year. Let's keep it going.
Nicely done.
It's a pretty intense sport. I feel like that and water polo are like two sports that if you ever try them, you can't understand how people can even do them.
Because they sort of look easy. Like
Yeah.
if you just casual.
They practice at 5 a.m. too, by the way, so I'm out.
Yeah. Actually, Gardner didn't show up at that time, right? Todd? Sure, he shows about over that, I think.
That is going to do it for News Center. See you tonight at 11.
Good night.